Hey Patreon tribe, welcome to another Patreon exclusive. And today's video is going to be my birthday haul. So I mentioned on my surprise birthday live stream, I can't help but futz with this thing. It's just so awesome to finally have a mean dog. But I mentioned on my birthday live stream that I didn't really get any gifts other than that championship belt. I got a bunch of dough because as families of most toy collectors probably know, toy collectors, especially vintage toy collectors, are tough people to shop for, because what can you possibly get the person when they are such experts at hunting down those little special pieces around the world. So yeah, my folks just gave me some dough and said, look, you go to one of the toy conventions and you pick up yourself a bunch of stuff that you want guilt-free, because I am usually very, very frugal at these shows, and I walk away with not too much. So went with my pal Lou to the most recent Mississauga Vintage Toy Expo and got a whole bunch of stuff. And I guess I got Michael mercied because the stuff was in great condition and for an awesome price too. It was packed. It was one of the most amazing retro cons I've seen. Lots of selection. And the first thing that I want to show you that I picked up is a G.I. Joe Mean Dog. And I never had this one back in the day. Don't have many of the like post 86 G.I. Joe vehicles, but I make some exceptions for the stuff that looks like it would fit right in with 86 and before. I've always loved the Mean Dog. I've got the driver already, and this is in beautiful condition. The only thing missing from it is the little cap for the Gatling gun. So when you spin this thing around, there's supposed to be a little cap there, and I'll find that eventually, or not. But this is a really, really cool little kind of tank / rolling vehicle. It's got a couple of really cool gimmicks. It was cool going through this thing with my friend Lou and just finding out, like, oh, this thing opens. We didn't even realize. And it can hold 3 drivers. I love when there's little control sticks for drivers or pilots in the aircraft to hold. Love the color of it. It's the Vamp Mark II color, so a very desert motif. It's got a moving little turret on the front here. And the coolest part about this gimmick, I'm going to take this part out first. This is a removable little cannon piece, which you just pull it out and you stick it down like that, and it's a little front heavy, but it's supposed to be removable. But the thing I love about the Mean Dog is, and try not to break this thing. It was funny asking the dealer, how do you do this? And he wasn't sure either, but something in here moves back. Okay, so this whole piece moves back like that, which exposes these little wheels here, which allows the front part of the Mean Dog to detach. And now, kind of reminds me of the Bat Pod from the Dark Knight Tumbler. This part just ejects out of here, so you've got a vehicle that is a little quicker. And the cool thing about it is you could just turn this turret around and have that be the front of the vehicle. So options, love options. And then that leaves you with this back part here, where you can have a driver sit in this little workstation, as Lou likes to call it, his little workstation, where he can work at blowing up Cobra stuff. And another cool little tiny detail about this thing, I guess this is a mini Mean Dog review. I'll get more in depth on this thing, but I love how the missiles will actually come apart from the vehicle, because, and this is something a lot of Joe and Cobra vehicles don't think about, it might be a little dangerous to have these going off so close to the vehicle. So just that little bit of distance there is that real world common sense that really set G.I. Joe apart from so many other toy lines of that era and even today. Pop this back in, slide that forward, and pop this guy in the back. This is such a cool vintage G.I. Joe vehicle. And who are you going to get to drive it? So another thing I picked up, I know some people are groaning out there, but Battle Force 2000, this was a deal I couldn't pass up. I've already got the Battle Force 2000 guys, but they're missing a whole bunch of parts. So I had a few of them when I was a kid, so I do have a little bit of nostalgia for the guys that I had, and even a little bit for the guys I didn't have, because I wanted them. I wanted the complete team. But these are in incredible shape, beautiful, brand new. I guess whoever owned these before didn't really like them either because they didn't play with them. But those were two of the guys I had. I also had Knockdown and Blaster. Obviously I had the Snow Battle Force 2000 guy, Avalanche. Maverick, I think, is just a cool figure, cool pilot, Battle Force 2000 or not. And then also Blocker and Dodger. So, got all the Battle Force guys now for eventually when I get to a Battle Force 2000 review. All their weapons, too. They're all complete, beautiful condition. And they're growing on me, to be honest with you. A couple of years ago, I wouldn't have given Battle Force 2000 a second look, but they're really growing on me because I'm starting to really appreciate finite teams in G.I. Joe. Things that didn't go on, well, in everything in general, I guess, just finite things that didn't go on forever, movies that were just 2 or 3 movies, teams that were just 6 guys, or 7, I guess, if you include DJ, who was a later figure. Got to get these guys some stands, or just have them stay in the Mean Dog. And that's immediately I thought, well, the Mean Dog, it's got to have some drivers in it, and you can hold 5 guys in the Mean Dog. So the 5 Battle Force 2000 guys will be great in this thing, and then Maverick, I'll find some aircraft for him. But very cool to have all the Battle Force guys in such nice condition, and with all of their parts, the little mask on Blaster. This thing is always getting lost. The little antenna, little mic deal on Avalanche, little microphone there. So just nice to have them complete and in fantastic condition too. And it's even got pegs on the back, so if you wanted to have all your Battle Force 2000 guys on the Mean Dog, you could, I guess, get DJ, stick him back there with Maverick as well. And I think they look really good on it. They're a futuristic team, and the Mean Dog, it's kind of got one foot in the classic realistic military-looking vehicle look, and one foot in the futuristic. Some of the Battle Force 2000 vehicles are a little too futuristic and sci-fi for my tastes, but I think they look fantastic in it. Another really affordable, some would say cheap, I say affordable figure. I had this one growing up. I loved it. The, what is his name? Strato Viper, Astro Viper. He's a Space Cobra. He was very cheap because he didn't come with his backpack, but I'm just going to use him as a pilot for something. I'll stick him in a Fang, or maybe the Mamba or a Night Raven or something like that. There's always a spot to stick a Cobra pilot. Another one I got, I totally missed this guy as I was going through the bins, and Lou pointed him out to me because he knew I was looking for the next Flint. I guess this is Flint version 3. So they're on the back, the very back of my G.I. Joe shelf, because there's not much nostalgia for these guys, but there is a tiny bit because he is Flint. It is a later version of Flint, and for me it's okay if he's standing next to a later version of Duke and Hawk and Beachhead and all those familiar characters. So again, not complete, but I don't really care. I find with the later figures, I actually prefer giving them my own choice of weapons for them. So a lot of these later figures, they didn't come with weapons that were anything like the original version came with. So I'm going to find a shotgun for this Flint. Doesn't have to be the original, but just a shotgun for me goes with Flint, and maybe a backpack that looks like Flint's original backpack. Another one I got, again, for really cheap. If these things are missing parts, accessories, they go for $5, is Raptor. So this kooky, zany Cobra figure, I've always been intrigued by him. And again, another cool pilot figure. Maybe stick him on the Sea Ray glider part, or a Cobra Claw, something like that. Like he's a perfect figure for a glider vehicle, even without his wings. But the wings are actually in fantastic condition. Really nice. So that's Raptor, and also got a couple of modern figures for the sole reason that they were like $3. So that's Canadian. What is that, $1.50 American, $2 American? I already had this guy, but his hand broke off. So it's Steeler, modern Steeler, and same deal with this Cobra Commander. Just the modern 25th anniversary Cobra Commander. I have him, but his hand broke off like just a few weeks ago from barely doing anything with them. So I thought for $3, yeah, I'll replace those broken figures. That's not a big deal. So that's a lot of Joe stuff that I got. And then I got a whole bunch of wrestling stuff too. So let's start off with, ooh yeah, the greatest Randy Savage. Yeah. Somehow this one eluded me. Here in Canada, we don't get all of the wrestling figures that are released in stores in the States. We either get them in very limited quantity or we don't get them at all. So I don't remember seeing this jeans and t-shirt version of Randy Savage. So again, just a few bucks. I'll add them to my Randy Savage collection, and I've got a whole bunch of Macho Man and Ultimate Warrior figures, which I'll be showcasing one day soon, hopefully. But just because I have so many Randy Savage figures with the robes, I got a bunch of those robes for him. I wanted to have one just in his civilian attire when he's talking to Mean Gene. So I had an extra little bandana. Some of the other Savage figures come with two different types of bandanas. One that has the Macho Man logo all over it, and then this earlier version, which he originally wore before he got the Macho Man bandana. So that looks fantastic on him. And also, this is the Intercontinental era of Randy Savage. So I've got a spare Intercontinental belt, which, yeah, he's always had sticky fingers when it comes to his championship belts. But the thing that was cool about Randy Savage back when he was Intercontinental Champion is that he would rarely wear the belt. He always cradled it. It was almost like the one ring to rule them all. He'd come out, and if you're familiar with NWA, the NWA champion would hold the belt like this, kind of to showcase it at his hip. But Randy would take that to the extreme and, yeah, peer close to the face. So I think that looks just awesome. T-shirt and jeans Randy Savage with the Intercontinental title. So that's one of the wrestling figures I got. And I also got, I've recently started to get into these Hasbro WWF style figures. I guess it started with that Mattel WWE ring, the vintage retro style ring, which looks just like the original Hasbro ring. So I've got a couple of the vintage guys and some of the new retro action vintage style guys. But one of my favorite tag teams was the Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott. And they had Scott, they didn't have Rick, so still hunting for Rick. But the Steiner brothers, some of my favorite matches in the 90s were Rick and Scott obliterating jobbers on WCW Worldwide. So cool to have a Steiner brother. And even though this is a WWF figure, I've got one of these NWA TNA tag team title belts from the TNA figures. And it actually fits on the man who would become the Big Bad Booty Daddy, Big Papa Pump. So even though it's a WWF figure, I look at it and I see WCW. Rick and Scott were the best WCW tag team, or up there with the Road Warriors, I guess. But looking forward to getting a Rick Steiner to go with him and putting the belt on backwards for that Rick Steiner, like Rick would always wear. And another pair of figures I got there. Now this one is a little more pricey, so I've passed on him quite a few times, but what was nice about this past trip was go buy yourself something guilt-free, so I did, and I still got a pretty good deal on him. But Bret the Hitman Hart is one of the more rare vintage Hasbro WWF figures. One of my favorites growing up. Bret, Piper, Macho, Ultimate Warrior, they were right up there for me, and it's awesome to finally have a Bret Hart figure. And then in a little bargain bin right beside him was his partner, his brother-in-law, yeah baby, Jim the Anvil Neidhart. So I had to have the Hart Foundation, even though Jim is not in the Hart Foundation outfit. He's in his new Foundation or singles outfit. So cool to have the Hart Foundation, and I've got an extra belt from Wrestling Figure Workshop, and that's gonna go right on the Hitman. Loved his reign as Intercontinental Champion and then later as World Champion. Man, that looks so awesome. These belts are absolutely vital. They are necessary if you're a vintage Hasbro WWF or Mattel Retro Action figure collector. It looks so good. It adds so much to the figure. So we got Bret and Jim, the Hart Foundation, and speaking of the Mattel Retro Action collection, a couple of Retro Action Mattel figures. So there's Stone Cold Steve Austin, another awesome wrestler in the style of the WWF Hasbro. And the Ultimate Warrior. This is so cool. Again, never made it to stores here. I guess they were widely available in the States. Not a really expensive, rare figure, but we just never got them in stores here. So very cool to have. I've got a couple of the actual original Hasbro vintage Warriors, but cool to have a carded. Even though it's a new one, it's in the style of the original. And I love that outfit too. Neon green on the Warrior was always one of my favorite of his color schemes. So that's Joe Wrestling, and actually ended up picking up a couple of Transformers as well. So there's Megatron, the G2 Megatron. So cheap, I couldn't say no. A lot of these that I see on eBay are missing this gun. So as soon as I saw that gun, I thought, maybe. It's missing everything else, but I don't really care. It's a part on the back here is broken, but I don't really care. The electronics work. So if you press them, so pressing the wheels down, the way it goes is when he's on the ground and you push him down, he'll speak and he'll say Megatron attack, or you get that rolling tank sound. So, alrighty. And he tends to be very chatty. Now, I had the G2 Hero Megatron, the little purple version of this. So it was really cool to have a toy this big and be able to immediately transform it just based on the design of the G2 Hero version. He's very similar to that one. It's just basically an upscaled version of that one. Let's see here. Arm goes around here. That goes there. He is chatty. Gonna have to shut that. Head pops out, and I guess he can hold his gun. Yeah. So I love G1 Power Master Optimus Prime, and I like the idea of a Megatron who's like a G1, even though he's G2. G1 style Megatron that's the same size as Power Master Optimus Prime. So yeah, I had to pick that up because I'm not going to find that cheap on eBay, because he might not go for much on eBay, but he's so big. It's always the shipping that really drives the price up. And he's in pretty nice condition too. So there was that. And then the last thing is, yeah, G2 Optimus Prime. Laser Optimus Prime. So comes with box, almost complete, just missing a couple of things, which is my preference. I like a few things missing because it drives the price down quite a bit. And I did have this one, not back in the 90s when he first came out, but I had him in the 2000s, before I was really into collecting. And I had him for a couple of years, and because I wasn't really doing anything with my collection, I sold him, and I've regretted it ever since because I had the box, and he was in fairly good condition. And I've often thought, man, now that I'm doing these videos, I'd love to have him again, because even though he's G2 and I prefer other versions of Optimus Prime over him, to me he really is the last of the original Optimus Primes. And he comes with his little, like, really thick instruction booklet. He comes with, look at all this stuff, tech specs, fold out thing, which the version I had, I didn't have any of this stuff. And I do have the Robots in Disguise Scourge repaint of this guy, so it's close, but I always wanted to get my hands on this guy again, and I couldn't believe how much this guy was selling this guy for. So yeah, I pulled the trigger on it. He's in beautiful condition. Again, not used too much, kind of like Battle Force 2000. Whoever owned him just kind of, I guess, had him sit there and went, it's not really my thing. Surprising that the electronics still work. His lights still light up. And just going to give him a quick transform here. I know they did reissue him, Takara did, and they gave him some chrome parts. And they look cool, but I gotta admit, it's awesome to just have the original version the way he originally was. And you put the sword in here, and now when you press the light, it actually will light the sword up. If we block some light here, you can see there it is, the blade lighting up a little bit. So that's Optimus Prime, G2, Generation 2 Optimus Prime, and I've actually found the perfect spot for him. Trailer, great condition too. The only thing that was missing, if you're curious, is some of these discs right here, which I really don't care about. The gimmick is you turn this and the discs shoot out the front, and they get lost in a back corner behind a box, and you're gonna knock a few things over and break them trying to get it back. So I don't care that some of those are missing. A couple of them are in there anyway. But I found the perfect spot for them. I've got a little corner in my Transformers display of well, not G2. They're the final G1 Transformers, like Thunderclash and the Turbo Masters. They were only released in the UK and in Canada, never released in the States. And I've had them in the top corner right there, signifying the end of the original line. And it's always felt like something was missing from that little back section. And it was this guy. Yeah, the whole collection there looks right now. That Optimus is with them. He's right from around the same era. He's not a Turbo Master, but he's in that same time period, and that whole collection just looks right with an Optimus Prime in front of them with his new generation of Autobots. So that is my epic birthday haul from this past 80s Toy Expo, Toy Convention, whatever they're calling it. But a lot of cool, fun stuff. It was fun to chat with people there too. A couple people actually walked up to me and said they watched the channel and they enjoy the videos, so that was really awesome too. But yeah, that's my haul. Really awesome stuff. Great time, super fun, awesome birthday. And thank you everyone for the birthday wishes. Sure made my day really, really awesome. I was very touched at how many well wishes I got that day, birthday wishes. So I hope you enjoy this haul video. So once again, thanks again for being part of the Patreon tribe. Greatly appreciated. And until next time, Nerdmas Day.